So welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I'm going to basically be running over the Yoeleo G21. This is the second generation model and how it's been to own basically over the last year. Warts and all, I'll tell you everything hopefully that you need to know, but by all means feel free to check it out on their website as well. If you've seen my other gravel bike, the light carbon, if you haven't seen that yet, after this one, go and check that out. But I'm just going to give you my honest opinion on this particular bike. So the Yoeleo G21, this is their second generation bike. This particular one is finished in medium, which is a colour shift paintwork there. As you can see in the sun, it sort of switches between green to blue to purple and sort of a petrolized colour. The tyre clearance is pretty huge, as you can see there. You've got 2.1 inch for 650B, like the wheels I'm running here. The frames are UCI compliant, as you can see there, and all their frames are. And this is sort of mid-tier frame set. I wouldn't say they're a budget frame set at all. Huge amounts of testing, you know, and a lot of bike manufacturers do, but we just don't tend to hear about it. When Chinese direct bikes first started getting known sort of 5-6 years ago, with the likes of Windspace and Yoeleo and iCan, us in the Western world are naturally going to question things we haven't heard of before. You wouldn't do that with a Western brand, even though we know that these brands are obviously manufactured out in China, in particular Xiamen and Taiwan. Why? Because marketing, because we've got the support of shops, and understandably, you know, you don't really have any reason to question it. If you do have a problem, you've got somewhere to go. And I understand that, and when it first sort of came about, a lot of people, you know, were sharing their horror stories on social media or YouTube of frames cracking, particularly mountain bikes or some road bikes with thin seat stays. Look, at the end of the day, it wasn't that long ago, some of the Western brands had major issues. I won't say which one for fear of being sued, but if you've been following YouTube, you'll know which one. And the fact is these brands, you know, it's manufacturing. Things will happen and can happen. It's how it's dealt with. And any questions or quibbles, Yoeleo have been on it. I've been lucky enough to own the R12 as my first bike, their Aero frame set, the R11, which is their climbing frame set, the generation 1 of this bike, and this is the second gen. So what do you get? Out of the box, obviously you get frame fork, handlebars. This is their H21 handlebar. Starts in sizes 400 by 80 all the way up to 440 by 110. I personally run a short stem. I like the bike to feel quite snappy in its feel, and you know, I think it sort of suits the terrain that I ride out here in South Downs in the south of England. You do have the option of luggage mounts if you so wish, but you don't have to have them. I did on the last one, but not on this particular version. Some things they did change was some of the hardware, so bits that were metal, like the headset spacers, are now plastic to reduce weight. And then they did change things, like they put in this rock guard here for the bottom bracket area, and they changed it to a T47 shell, which is basically a shell that's bonded into the frame. Now, the nice thing about that is it's not only a standard that a lot of manufacturers are going to, but it means that there's a whole variety that you can run with no issues whatsoever, no creaking or anything like that. The only thing I probably would say is that we just quickly come around to the other side. If you are going to run a more traditional setup like I have here with a 50-34, you'll notice it's a very close chainring to chainstay there, and I did actually have to space it out with a 1mm spacer, but they're easy enough to get hold of. Got an 1134 out back and rolling over the heels here, no issues whatsoever. You also notice I'm running the L2 RX 2x12 system, and for the price that you pay, I would say this is every bit as good as Shimano 105. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Shimano, but I wanted to try this out after seeing a lot of good reviews, and I've got no quibbles with it whatsoever. You've got this sort of style paddle shifter with the Campagnolo style gear change on the inside there, but the rubber on the hoods is really good. I've had no rattle issues or anything like that. And it's kind of worked flawlessly. And I've also used GRT, the 1x12 system, on the other bike that I was mentioning earlier, and it's just been fantastic. Their standards have just been excellent, from paint to workmanship, And you could tell they've thought about loads of little details when they did this second generation update, like I say, with some of the hardware, just simple little things to either reduce weight or refine just that little bit better, even down to this rail system, which is borrowed from the R12, where effectively you got your fore and aft, you got your tilt, and it's just a couple of bolts there. And the nice thing about that, you could just adjust it almost on the fly. But in terms of how the bike feels, well, let's get out on the trails. So the frame is composed downhill. It's nicely balanced, got a nice long wheelbase. Feels sure-footed as I sort of come into these, bit steep. Yeah, so basically it just feels planted, super stable. Means on nice dry trails like this, you can just really send it. You might be thinking, oh yeah, but it's sponsored. No, come on, get real. Look at the subscribers. This is something that actually has come a lot later, the YouTube channel. So I'm basing these experiences genuinely on my own. If anything ever was paid, I'd tell you, but I doubt it ever will be. The frame sets have been superb. Like I say, that first R12, gave it to a bike shop that sold Pinarello, Specialized, Giants. And I said, look, can you build it for me? I haven't really got the time. I don't really fancy doing this internal routing lock. And they said, yeah, sure. And when I got it back at the end of the day, I said, come on, be honest. And they were like, yeah, it's as good as anything that we've got in here. A lot of that comes down to how it's molded. So EPS molding is becoming more and more mainstream. I've said it again in one of my other videos, which you can check in the link here. But basically, EPS molding is a superior way. It gives better compaction. It uses a latex bladder rather than the things that look like sandwich bags that are inflated. So effectively what they do is lay down the carbon in the configuration they want. They put the EPS latex bladder in, they inflate that, and it means you essentially get smooth internals. So none of this wrinkling or tenting, and that's something that's normally seen on much higher bike frames, but it is becoming more mainstream. If you watch my light carbon video, you would have seen that too also had it. So something worth looking out for. Warranties, things like that. People always going on about warranties. If you bought something from a UK shop, you're not even going to question it. Why? Because you've got a shop to go to. The fact of the matter is, there is no issues to be concerned about. Any questions, quibbles, anything like that, Yoeleo have been on it. Yes, they're 8 hours ahead. Yes, you have to wait a little bit, but that is a compromise. And colour choices, you get two main colour choices. I think it's Arctic Ice and Desert Brown. And then they do a custom colour under their own program. Wheelset, no, I don't have the latest and greatest gravel wheelset from them. I built this up before that. Plus, I spent all my money on this, so I don't have $1,000 spare. I talked about it again in my other video, but that's actually from Scribe. They've been excellent wheelset, some of the best wheels I've ever ridden for an alloy wheelset. And I think if I had to choose again between this and a carbon equivalent off AliExpress, I think for what I paid, which was about £300, yeah, there's no contest. I'd be buying these all day long. They are some of the best wheels at retaining air. In fact, just this morning, I noticed I hadn't ridden this bike for 2 weeks and there was no air dropped at all. Quite phenomenal in just how they're seated. Now, that could be the tyre combination, I know, yada, yada. But on routes like this, it's been fantastic. Bike weight, you're looking at, I think this complete setup without all the accessories and bits is coming in at, I think it's just over 8 kilos, which for a gravel bike of this caliber, very, very competitive. It might even be 9.2. Let's work that out later. I'll put it on screen. But yeah, very, very competitive. Cost-wise of the frame set, I'll put it on screen now because depending on when this goes out, but like I say, usual price is usually around $1,400. That includes free shipping to most places in the world. But they, like I say, they've got a sale on at the moment. And there is word, I'm going to say, potentially, after all that, you might go, what? But actually, maybe don't buy this one. And the reason for that is because they are releasing another model. Now, I believe it's a special edition. I could be wrong, but it's called the Tyre. It's effectively a Gen 3, but there is only some subtle changes. I've been lucky enough to see it. I did ask them before I put this video out. I said, have you got anything new coming? So I wanted to know if this is still going to be relevant for people. And they said, yep, we've got a new model. They showed me a picture of it, and there's some very subtle changes, but I don't think the geometry really has changed at all. It's things like a universal derailleur hanger on the back. It's, you know, it's little bits like that. So a bit like this was a change from the first gen. But as a complete bike, I would say, yeah, absolutely go for it. You won't be disappointed. And yeah, let us know how you get on if you do get one. So for now, like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. It does help me out. I don't earn anything from it. Come on, look at the subscribers. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Cheers.